Ruth, welcome. Olliers Solicitors, you've been there for 20 years. I know you did a law degree.
I did law, European law, so law with German.
Law with German?
So I did a 4-year degree, and the third year of it I spent studying law at a university in Germany, in German.
In German?
Which was quite challenging.
See, that's, I was going to say, that is a very old challenge.
But so much fun.
So how do you go from a lawyer within a law firm that's not doing anything to do with law, you're actually doing BDM and marketing? How did that come about?
Well, a lot of it still is to do with law, but essentially when I finished uni, I moved back home. I trained with Olliers and became a solicitor, and spent many years working as a criminal solicitor. For the majority of my career, when I was working fee earning as a solicitor, I specialised in defending motoring offences. And it was really only at COVID time that my role significantly changed. But I'd always had a lot of dealings with our website at work and the marketing. Like back in sort of 2012, 2013, we were with an external agency, and we then moved to a freelance website SEO consultant who we're still with now, who's absolutely fantastic. And I took over a lot of responsibility for the website as well as my fee earning role. And I have to say, I much preferred that. I find that really relaxing. I find it less stressful, and I really enjoyed working on the website. So much so that when we actually got somebody in as a marketing assistant to do more to do with the website, to take a lot of day-to-day responsibility off me, I actually found that quite difficult to begin with, because I felt like it was my website, and I didn't want anybody touching it, because, you know, if things weren't done in a certain way, I could be quite OCD about it, and I found it really difficult. But yeah, so I'd always had involvement in the website, and then that went on to social media, because, you know, I'd upload a blog and then put it out on socials, and that got more and more. And then obviously, when COVID happened, we're a criminal law firm, so the work significantly dried up, and I had a lot more free time. So I spent an awful lot of time in conjunction with Matthew, our managing director, working on the website. We changed so much on it, and it just really took off. And I then moved into a role where I was working far more with new inquiries that were coming, like say 95% of our new inquiries were coming from the website. It really took off exponentially, and I didn't have time to carry on fee earning, doing my job as a solicitor, and doing all of this role as well, because I wouldn't have been able to work on my clients' cases properly, effectively, how they should have been. So when I became a director in 21, it was then we then took the decision that actually I really couldn't be fee earning anymore.
That actually makes sense, because we've done videos over the years and your knowledge base far outweighs somebody who just did a little bit at university and then moved on to other roles.
Yeah, as a more junior solicitor, would have to go out to the police station in the middle of the night, which is challenging when you've then got to be at work really early in the next morning. But obviously, you then get experience of all sorts of cases. Yeah. Then, as we developed more of our privately funded work, particularly with an emphasis on our pre-charge representation, which we do so much of now, and I dealt with those cases myself as well.
So I've looked on your YouTube channel, and quite a lot of your videos are getting 40,000 views. Not really.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very niche client base. Generally speaking, it's people who are going through the worst times of their life. The vast majority of our clients have had no prior involvement in the criminal justice system, so they've never had any dealings or interaction with the police or the court system. They're absolutely terrified. They're so anxious, because it's not just the case, it's the implications on their life. They might be terrified of making that initial call. I mean, I've spoken to so many people who We'll get off that first call and we'll say, oh, thank you. I feel so much better now. I was worried I was going to be judged. I was worried you were going to think I was a terrible person because of what I had to tell you. I was too scared to make that contact. And, that's something that I always feel really good about, that actually, like, we can help them. We've not actually even started on actually what we're going to do in the legal aspect. But if we can have just made them feel slightly better and that there's some hope ahead for them, then, we've done something good.
It's such a massive leap from going, we are the best solicitor, just come and phone us up, to dishing out information quite freely that then drives traffic back to your website.
I mean, part of it is that we try, and everyone can always do better, can't they? But try and make ourselves seem approachable, because I've looked at, I love looking at other firms' websites, and it's something I do every day. And you look at some firms and you think, I'd be scared to pick the phone up and make that call, because they look really stuffy. They look like they're going to be really pompous, and I couldn't make a phone call to them. I mean, I know previously, like in my personal life, when I've needed a solicitor for non-criminal matters, I should say, as a solicitor myself, I still feel a little bit apprehensive. Like, what they're going to say? Am I going to be able to answer the questions?
It's like going into a confessional.
And so, part of it is, well, we want to encourage them to get in contact with us and know it's not scary, and know that it's, we're not going to judge them, but also give them a little bit of explanation, because some of these offences that we deal with, they're not the most straightforward in terms of like the terminology or what they're called. There can be a lot of misconceptions about actually what the offence is, and what will happen. So we want to try and give some information as well in terms of, what is actually going to happen, the process and procedures, because to us, well, we know, the most likely route ahead is that a person may be arrested, they may be interviewed, they may be bailed for the police to investigate the matter further. The file may then go to the Crown Prosecution Service for them to make a decision, and ultimately they may end up in court in relation to the matter. But a client isn't necessarily know that that's the journey that or the path that their case is going to take. Having seen so many of these types of cases, we can say, or we can also say, well, actually, the police, the prosecution have got a lot of challenges here. I don't think there is a realistic prospect of conviction, and we can do X, Y, and Z to help you, and this is what we should be doing now.
You've been making videos, because I looked at some of your very early videos when I was looking at your most ranked videos, and you took the decision to do this 20 years ago. Stood in front of your little blue sign and way too much headspace with the big Olliers sign in the background.
I mean, obviously video content was very different then, wasn't it? And I think, I have to give a lot of credit to our web consultant, Sean, who, many, many years ago was banging the drum about video content, and this is what you need to be doing from an SEO perspective. So we had that as well. He banged into us from many, many years ago. And I suppose, obviously, as like social media has evolved, it's become a lot easier, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We would always do longer form video content previously, whereas now it's a mix, and probably far more shorter form video content. I'm sure if we look back at some of the old content, it's absolutely awful. And I'm sure also, we could be more accessible. When I look at some of the terminology we've used, it's probably needs to be more explanatory for people who aren't familiar with the terminology that we use and aren't familiar with the criminal justice system. But yeah, it's certainly something we've been doing for a long time.
Well, I do believe that whenever we spoke about writing scripts, etc., and I'm always the one sat behind the camera, I always ask you to make sure that it's idiot-proof when we first start talking about it, to make it open and accessible to absolutely everybody, and I think you do a great job of it. The way that you'll always explain what something is first, a great example of it, which I always bang on to absolutely everybody, is if your mate suddenly phones you up absolutely out of the blue and says, can you book me a train ticket to Aberdeen, just ask him whether he's murdered somebody first, because you could be accessory to that to that thing. And they go, what? Yeah, you'll 100%. They'll have you up first before they have anybody else. So the things that we learn, it's absolutely terrible. I'm sat behind the camera over there, and she's just going, "Yeah, we know too much." Over the 20 years, social media was pretty much not really a thing. How did you decide that you were going to take it from being, especially considering Olliers at the time had an older generation of mindset that were very much print, TV, radio? Was it your SEO web designer, Sean, who said, let's look at doing more social media, or was it something within your generation? Because you're one of the first generations of...
I think that, I wouldn't even know when Twitter or X actually came out, but, that was a big thing for us back in the day. And I certainly remember, we'd do our blogs and, get them out. And, Twitter used to be active, didn't it? There used to be a lot of engagement on there. I mean, nobody uses it anymore, do they? But, and I think, far bigger than LinkedIn initially. And obviously, I don't know when Instagram started, but it certainly didn't feature in our social media channels at that time. So it was all Twitter and LinkedIn. I mean, we'd put stuff out on Facebook, but only because we might as well. And then I suppose it just took off from there. I honestly can't remember when Instagram came in.
Instagram for me was an absolutely brilliant medium, just because it was just Polaroid in your life. You just took pictures of your own life and you showed people, this is what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. It was very much, if anybody was using it for marketing, it was very much a covert kind of marketing thing. I mean, I can't imagine a lawyer standing outside of Crown Court today going, "Hi, Olliers, Crown Court today. We're going to stop someone from getting sent down for murder."
Who do.
No way. That would just be so funny. It's like, today we're stopping someone getting the death penalty. What would you say over your past 10 years have been your greatest achievements, and what would be an absolute no-no? What would you do that fell on its arse, social media and advertising wise, and what absolutely took off when you weren't expecting it to?
I mean, I think we've learned that people like to see what we get up to that isn't legal related. So anything involving dogs is, guaranteed. People, in terms of engagement on social media, people like to see, the award ceremonies. Like, we do loads of wellness activities. They always do really, really well in terms of engagement. I think people like to see, like, the personalities behind the firm. We accept that some of our drier content that's too legalistic, no one's interested in it, are they? I mean, we've, over the past few months, done a lot of work in terms of, like, our external communications, our branding, and the way that we market ourselves. That basically we review to all of this starting in January, in terms of, like, the language that we use, and really to try and make us more accessible, to try and put ourselves in that position of, that speaking to that mum who has that teenage son and she's just in an absolute state of despair, and try and come away from being too legalistic, because look, we can deal with that later. We know the law inside out. Somebody at the beginning of their journey doesn't necessarily need to be bombarded with which sections of which act apply to them, because with the greatest respect, they're probably not going to fully understand.
Well, they're not interested.
They just want to know what's going to happen. Yeah. So we need to break it down. And we went back and looked at a lot of our web pages, and there's still more that I'm working on at the moment that actually, do you know what, there's too much law in there. We need to break it down. Yeah. Like, we're the people who should be translating that law so that your average layperson can understand it. That's one of the challenges that we're facing at the moment. We need to make sure that our content is better than what AI can produce, because otherwise every other firm can get that done very, very easily.
Is there a strategy that you've actually thought to yourself, 5 socials, 2 informationals, or have you just always just gone, this is the content I've got today, let's put it out.
No, I mean, we have like a content schedule, so a weekly one and a monthly one. So we'll have a weekly one, like actually what content we're putting out that is subject to change, because obviously something could, there could be a government announcement, or there could be a big case in court, and then we could do a blog quickly on that, and then I might substitute something for that. So we'll have a weekly one, then we'll have a monthly one. Actually, do you know what are the key things that are going to be happening in this month that we can do content on? And then we've got an annual one as well for various things, like when it's I don't know, like neurodiversity celebration week or something like that. And then there's our regular content, like testimonials that we'll interject in there. And, I mean, we could put testimonials out every day because we get them. And, I'm really proud of the testimonials that my colleagues get, because they're absolutely fantastic. And this is, it's the testimonials, I think, show that the way that we help somebody through their journey, because you could have two cases where the clients actually end up with the end result exactly the same. I don't know, they end up with a suspended sentence, which is a fantastic result. But the way that they've had the hand held throughout the journey, like some of the testimonials, I mean, they'll talk about, like, I'm really proud of one that we got last year from my colleague Zita, where it talks about, you'll always be part of our family, because, that's what regard the family hold her in, because of, how she was with them throughout the process that lasted many years, whereas you could have another firm, the client ends up with exactly the same result, but hasn't felt supported at every step in the journey, because it's not just the result that matters, it's how somebody feels and how somebody is supported and how somebody's looked after.
So why did you decide that was the way forward?
I mean, I think it's just, I'd like to say it's the way that we all are. I mean, I think perhaps it's the nature of the criminal law as well. I think, if you're in a conveyancing firm, maybe it's not as important, ultimately you're going to complete on that property, and you're probably not quite as anxious, although buying a house is very stressful, isn't it? But I'm not sure it's the same sort of anxiety that you may feel as if your teenage son is under investigation for a serious sexual offence. I think it probably feels very different. So I think it's the nature of criminal law. And I'd like to say as well, like, it's the type of people that me and my colleagues are. Like, I know what I would be like if something happened to one of my children. Oh my God, like, I just wouldn't be able to sleep at night for weeks. And so I'd like to say it's the type of people we are. Like, I don't think we're pretending to be something or doing it because, that's what we think should happen. I think it's just, certainly it's how I am.
It's just your nature.
I understand how how people feel.
So you're pushing your social nature out into the world, and that's part of your marketing tool to show that you are people. Mm-hmm. You're not just a product that's there to serve.
Because there's so many things that emanate from a case that, aren't necessarily part of the actual, if you look black and white, legal aspect of it. And a potential client or a client, they can't just separate. They can't just be like, oh, well, this is the legal aspect and that's all I can talk about with my lawyer, because all these little things as well will be impacting.
Yeah, they have a bearing on it.
A huge bearing. I think it's understanding that.
How do you go from changing your social media into being multi-award winning constantly? I mean, it just seems to be a natural progression every single November to see top 10 times lawyer list. And I know we've talked about it when we've been at the offices and just going, yeah, I need to buy a bigger cabinet because...
I mean, look, we're really proud. We're top tier Legal 500 chambers. We're a Times best law firm. We've won Manchester Legal Awards Crime Team of the Year 8 times now since 2011, which is quite a lot.
People just may as well just not bother turning up to those awards.
Obviously, these are external awards, external recognition. So, I'd like to say things are working, but that's because of the work that my colleagues are doing, that our team is doing. That's not because of the marketing. That's because they're all fantastic lawyers.
They are all fantastic lawyers. But if you didn't do your job and drive traffic towards showcasing those fantastic lawyers, they wouldn't be there to be able to provide that service.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we know how important like the website from an SEO perspective and obviously the socials are. When we put so much effort in, like as I mentioned at the beginning, sort of in the COVID time, our work just completely absolutely went through the roof. So we are very reliant on the website being generating work for us. So it just constantly evolves from there. And then obviously because things have gone so well, because we've got a great team working for us, and we get fantastic results, then it's easy to share success, isn't it?
How would you suggest to somebody who was marketing to almost a non-marketable client base to market to them? Would you always turn around and say, be social, be authentic, push yourself out, and then you can sell yourself as an expert? Or is there another secret sauce that I'm kind of
No,
missing?
I mean, I don't think there's any secret. I mean, obviously, you need people to see you. It's a niche, isn't it? Because people are only going to really look for a criminal solicitor when they need one, and you don't know when that will be. Most people think, oh well, it will never happen to me because I'm a law-abiding citizen. And I always think, well, I know so many people who, friends of mine, people who you'd never expect, because false allegations happen, and false allegations happen all the time. And so people do find themselves under investigation. But realistically, people are only going to look for a solicitor when they actually need one. So you need to be seen first and foremost, and that's going to be really from your SEO, from your website. But then obviously as part and parcel of that potential client looking to find the best solicitor for them, most of the time they're going to then speak to a few different firms, get a feel for them, and so many things can play a part in that, in terms of like that client journey, how the call is answered by a reception team initially, what whoever's dealing with that new inquiry says to them, the information that they provide. But then often they're going to want to confirm their choice with, external recognition. So obviously that's why it's so important for us to have the Legal 500, the Chambers, Times Best Law Firm, and the awards as well. But they're also going to check out our reviews. You get so many people quoting back things to you that I know are a Google review on there, because I know all of them pretty much off by heart. And then you get really upset when you get a 1-star one.
Why did you get a 1-star one? Go on, give us.
I mean, there'll be an investigation into it all the time by me. A lot, somebody might have made an inquiry, and it's not an area of law we do, and they're not very happy about that. It can be down to something really trivial.
Does Google reviews push your ranking significantly? As in, does it make you more visible?
Yeah.
Do you use sponsored Google ads, or
so we only use sponsored Google ads for motoring. Motoring is really challenging to be competitive in.
Does that drive traffic?
Yeah, absolutely. So we typically have it on one day a week. We tend to have it on a Monday, and it would just be absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, we can impact that in terms of our budget. We've got complete control over when we have it on, what time of day we have it on. We can stop it if it's too busy, and we can reduce the budget. We can increase the budget, but yeah, an awful lot.
So does that lead me into LinkedIn sponsored ads? Anything that you've ever considered, or you just think to yourself, LinkedIn is pretty much a lot of professionals just being nosy about other professionals?
Yeah, I mean, we've considered it, but we've never used.
Why?
Because I felt we've not really needed to.
Right.
We have spent a lot of time building our connections on LinkedIn. We put a lot of effort into that. And, when I used to do fee earning, used to get referrals from people I didn't know at all. And they'd be like, oh, I've seen this on LinkedIn. Can you deal with this? If it was something a little bit niche, particularly when I did a lot of the disclosure and barring service work, I get referrals from people all the time. I certainly think LinkedIn is a very, very powerful tool. But no, we've not used sponsored LinkedIn.
Thanks for coming in, chatting with us today and sharing your insights on how to market a business such as yours. I'll put links in the description below to your website and YouTube channel so people can see what it is that you've achieved for themselves.
Fantastic.
Thank you.